Joining me now is dear royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Richard, thank you so much for joining me again. I paused that question because I'm going to be talking to Clive Lewis, MP for Norwich South, a little bit later. He's a Republican and he believes, and I'm going to look more into this when I talk to him later, that the monarchy needs to be reformed in some way. Are you going to go nuts and scream at me, no, this should never happen, or agree?
Well, you've given the game away, you see, by mentioning he's a Republican. Now, if he didn't want the monarchy gone, I mean, he wouldn't be a Republican, would he? One of the questions, though, a Republican's got to ask, and I'm sure you'll be asking him this and putting this to him, and if he doesn't answer or tries to fib, you'll be pushing him on it. What alternative does he? And again, all the polls show one thing with reference to republic. This has hardly changed. There are a few points in the 20s, 22, 23% of the population. It used to be fewer. It used to be about 60 to 17. The monarchy used to be up to about 70 or thereabouts. It slipped a bit. Last poll shows us some 60, and also King Charles a 64% rating. But essentially, they've got a very real problem. Not one single major political party supports them, and therefore the calls for some referendum or whatever, it's completely empty. They're making a noise. They always planned, when the Queen died, to up a tax because they knew that quite obviously every monarch is different, and obviously the Queen is.
But Richard, do you think they need modernising? Because I mean, when you look at polls for the coronation coming up, younger people, they say they'll watch or they'll get involved, but the bulk of younger people sort of a bit couldn't. I mean, they're happy for the bank holiday and what have you. Do you think that do you think if the crown, let me put you on the spot, if the crown had gone, and I know it wouldn't have because Charles was waiting for his day for many years, but if the crown had gone straight to William, do you think it would have reinvigorated the monarchy more?
Well, I mean, obviously, I've got to answer the question in the way that it was put, because as you know, and as I know, this isn't the way monarchy works. It's inherited so that the crown...
No.
But if it did, well, the answer is, of course, because William and Catherine, they're far younger, they're very glamorous, the world's most glamorous royal couple. They've also got a charming family, and indeed it was a wonderful thing to see the Queen with her grandchildren.
Oh, yeah, lovely photo.
Lovely photograph, where yesterday, and what would have been her 97th birthday, a time for a little reflection. But there's absolutely no doubt that if you could move people around in a convenient way, on the one hand, it might be ideal from a public relations point of view, but on the other hand, of course, the institution couldn't function like that, because the benefit of a hereditary monarchy, which it may sound strange to say this in the 21st century, but it is that you know who is going to succeed, and you won't get some superannuated former politician, which is essential. You might very well get under a republic.
Yeah, well, I can't. King Boris is just a step too far for even me. Let's talk about you. You were writing that and talking about who's going to be involved in what. I know that you write that there's no way that Prince Andrew can ever come back. He can never have. I mean, there are reports of him maybe trying to challenge certain things, overturn certain things. But you really believe that there is nothing that can be done. He's written out of the story and that's it?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say that, of course, of anybody in the early 60s. But on the other hand, when your opinion poll popularity ratings simply don't exist at all, it's impossible to carve out any form of public life in a sensible way. I mean, he's still Duke of York, and the people of York, poll I saw, over 90% or nearly 90% didn't want him. I mean, the point, unfortunately, is that reportedly he paid at the beginning of last year some £12 million to Virginia Roberts Giuffre to settle a civil case against him. The interview that he gave with Emily Maitlis on Newsnight,
gosh,
it's no words known in the English language to describe how ghastly it was, and quite frankly, his reputation of being so desperately entitled, it's something that I really don't see how it could be rescued. What he needs to do, I would have thought, is take on a job that, for example, might involve running the royal estate, something like that. But these reports and rumors, we get endlessly that he's seeking a public role when one just isn't available. And I mean, King Charles knows this. The Prince of Wales knows this, and I mean, it just simply won't happen. It would be, I would have thought, in a different circumstance, perfectly possible for Beatrice and Eugenie to take on some royal duties or some extra royal duties if circumstances permitted. But I don't see it simply because the York brand is toxic. I mean, if you want to give the monarchy a bad name, you would see, or people would see more of Andrew. I mean, what the Boyles do privately, that's a different matter. But running the royal estates, that's
Well, I was going to say, Richard, I've always felt that Prince Andrew has benefited from the drama around the Sussexes. When I say benefited, it's if it wasn't for the Sussexes, I think the spotlight and the opposition would be louder and greater. I mean, they've taken a lot of the heat off him, not all of it, but a lot of it. And I mean, you know, people bang on about what the Sussexes have done, which is be vocal and talk about, you know, things, family matters in a 21st century sort of way. Charles did it in the old-fashioned way. But Andrew, really, when you look at what he is alleged to have done, it's far, far more damaging, I would have thought.
Well, of course, nothing, we must emphasize again, that's been proved, but there's a picture that practically everybody with any interest in the subject can instantly recall, which where he had his arm round Virginia Roberts Giuffre, and where his good friend and our child trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell was in the photograph, and he's never managed to explain it. And I mean, that is just one example. The other thing is that if he was looking for some sort of revival in years to come, but he hasn't, for example, cooperated, as far as I know, with the FBI, who want to try and trace Epstein's companies. It's this sort of thing. He couldn't go to America, I don't think, without problems. The thing is...
And of course, he denies it. He, you know, vehemently denies it. But I couldn't agree with you more. People have said, well, why not pitch up and you know, go a further step? But it is a mess, and it will continue to be a mess, and it will be continued to be talked about. Let's move on now. There are reports, and I say reports because I'm sorry, I take so many of these with a pinch of salt, but we don't know the ins and outs. But there's a report that and I hate that they call her Meghan Markle. She's the Duchess of Sussex. Meghan wrote to King Charles that after the Oprah interview where they were talking about a member of the royal family referring to what colour Archie might be, and allegedly, and it says this report that the Duchess of Sussex said who it was going. Who actually made that remark, and it is alleged again that she didn't get the right answer. I find all of this is where I start thinking, But anyway, that there seems to have been, the crux of this story seems to have been some dialogue between King Charles and the Duchess of Sussex about that remark in the Oprah interview.
Oh, there is indeed. And I mean, we didn't know the letter existed, but it's hardly surprising. I mean, the Queen's response was that some recollections may vary, and the accusations which were considered racist at the time are now phrased in the term unconscious bias. But it was 2 years before Harry altered that. And indeed, the damage was done, and a lot of damage has been done by that and by those accusations. And of course, we're also dealing with the fact that she believes that she was the subject of, and she's vehemently denied this, of bullying accusations, and then, of course, the issue dealing with mental health. So, yes, it would appear the way these rumours, as you correctly say, are being phrased is that this is one of the reasons, the fact she hasn't had an apology or the dialogue that they wanted, which she was never going to get, or he was going to get. That is the reason then that she is remaining with Archie on his 4th birthday and not coming to the coronation. Well, that may very well be true, but it's a splash all over the Telegraph, the story. It revives the problems that occurred after Oprah. The plain fact of the matter is, I think Harry coming solo is the best possible compromise in a circumstance that, if he's briefly here, it won't mean any reconciliation. But where will the Sussexes take the future? Another matter, I wish they'd be constructive. They must build a life of some
Well,
sort.
I was going to say, Richard, that one of the things that I've noticed is that the Duchess has stepped back. Things have gone much quieter since Harry's book came out, as far as the Duchess has been concerned. And I'm sort of thinking, phew, because and I think, and we can only all guess, why would you want to come to Britain and revive all of that when things are starting to die down? She's a young mother, a mother of young children. The angst, the thought of facing all of that, and people have pointed out, it'll be, photographers will be trying to get that nanosecond where her eyes go up to the left and it looks like this, and you've got all sorts of quote-unquote body language experts. The poor woman, whether you agree or disagree or whatever you think, because none of us really know her, but the poor woman would be, every little thing would be nitpicked and analysed, taking away, making it all about them and not about the coronation and King Charles and Queen Camilla. I mean, Harry's going to have to go through a bit of that, but it would be even worse, wouldn't it, if the Duchess was with him?
Well, I've never been somebody who's believed that whether or not they came, and I thought both of them would come, I certainly thought one of them must come because, of course, their contracts are being royal, and they are royal with Netflix, with Spotify, with Random House. You could get 3 more books. Who knows what they'll be about? And if they didn't come, if no one came from that family, it would be, well, they'd appear relevant, and that they can't. Cannot happen. And of course, it's so important for Harry's father, but it's not just that. The facts are that Meghan, apart from restarting, according to reports, her blog, The Tig, it's simply a case that we know what she's going to do. My own feeling has always been, I've suspected, that she would like some form of dialogue, something that was phrased in a way that you could say she's had an apology from the royal family, so that it would give her a basis of entering politics. But if she wants to enter politics, I think the Americans have other power. And according to the last 2 polls we've seen in Newsweek, after Spare, the Harry's memoir, the Sussexes' popularity died by over 40%, both of them. I mean, that's drastic, but if it is the case, they have to worry because, again, if you trash your family, if you attack and if you appear destructive, and Harry, he created the Invictus Games. He could do so much of the celebrity philanthropy. All of this is something that should be best left in the past, but they keep making threats that there will be more books, for example. Meghan could write a memoir.
Well, I hope there's not, because I hope there's not. I think, but I'm an eternal optimist. I'm hoping it will die down, and I'm sure that the royal family and the Sussexes have had far more dialogue than any of the media know about. Because as you say, even with this whole letter that came out, it was so long, it would have been so long ago. Only now is there any voicing of it. How much more do we not know? But thank you. It's always a pleasure talking with you. And I know we're going to be talking lots more in the lead up to the coronation. Richard Fitzwilliams there, our royal commentator and good friend of the show.